Okay, right off the bat, this is gonna be a spoiler review because I went to see 1917. I marinated on the movie for a couple days, and there's really no way I can talk about this without spoilers. The movie is inspired by stories director Sam Mendes' grandfather told him. Now, whenever we hear worded in the way inspired by true stories, we know take it with a grain of salt, but this film had intrigued me because we don't see a lot of World War One stuff. And World War One is a very fascinating time period. In fact, a lot of World War Two buffs say when World War One began, it was the real beginning of the 19th century. It was a war like none other at the time, and still to this day stands as the prime example of the brutality and senselessness of total war. The war started because the Archduke of the Austro-Hungary Empire was assassinated. Basically, everyone that died in this war died because a spoiled rich kid with a title was killed. And Germany at the end of the war got the bulk of the negative backlash from the treaties and whatnot because they had the most powerful military force and they were the last ones standing. All the root causes of World War II can be traced back to World War One. The movie has a simple plot. Two soldiers have to get this message to another area to stop an oncoming attack because the Germans are planning a trap. And one of them is the younger brother of a lieutenant or lieutenant, as they call him, who's in the attack. Now, the fairy tale ending would be they make it there, they stop the attack. But no war is a fairy tale, and this movie holds true to that. The younger brother actually gets killed partway through, and it is a shocking movie because, again, even though you know it's a war movie, you at least expect him to be the one to see his brother to make it, but no, and from this point it becomes his friend's journey of doing this for his dead friend. And it has a lot of great imagery in this film, like the scene where they have to cross this area where the Germans pulled back, and these are Germans that were taking part in the trap. And as they're going across no man's land, it does, but it doesn't show a lot. You get to see how horrifying it was between those two, between the trenches. You'll see horse corpses in various stages of decay, whether really bloated or practically just a skeleton left. There's even a scene where, well, they're told before they cross, some of these craters may not look deep, but they're deeper than they are. Don't fall in or you'll never get out. And as they're getting closer to the German trench, there's a scene where you don't see the whole body, but you see what's presumably the arm of a German soldier as he's trying to climb back up out of this crater to get to his side. And it just shows, without actually showing any fighting on no man's land, it shows what a hellacious environment no man's land really was. The barbed wire littered with dead bodies, muddy everywhere, and there were even nice details like that, like how wet it was in the British trenches. The areas where the trenches were dug had very low water levels, so they didn't have to dig deep to start striking water. And it was very true to that. When the one soldier gets killed, there's a German plane shot down, and the two of them, they try to do the decent human thing and pull this German out so he won't burn to death. And as they're going to get him water for his legs, he gets stabbed, and then the German pilot gets shot, and it leaves this one man by himself in a desperate race against time to deliver this message. He gets taken part of the way by another unit, and the officer even tells him, do what you can to make these people believe when you get there to stop the attack. And he's, sir, their orders. In this officer points out, yeah, but sometimes men just want to fight. And we even, probably my favorite segment in the film, there's a scene where, okay, he has to get in a little bit of a shootout, and he winds up falling back and gets knocked out, and it's nighttime when he wakes up. And the Germans are all over this area, and they keep shooting flares up. And this scene feels like it's only lit by the occasional flares, and he has to make his way dodging soldiers, which is another great thing. There's the lighting in this film. There's scenes where it feels like it's only lit by a lantern. It feels like the flare shooting up is the only thing lighting this scene, and it's just really well done. Even the scenes like where they go into the German trench and a rat knocks a tripwire and causes it to collapse and they have to get out. Again, the lighting, even in that scene, is phenomenal. And just that whole, the barracks underground like that with the rats crawling around where the Germans were, it gives me chills to think about having to sleep in that environment. And even eventually when the soldier gets there, like I said, no war is a fairy tale. The attack began and they're a couple waves into it. So not only did his friend die, so the brothers don't get to reunite, but he doesn't even get there in time to stop the attack altogether, and he has to run through the lines to find the officer and actually fight his way through because other soldiers aren't letting him see the officer, and he has to pretty much shove them off and fight his way in to give the officer the orders. And it actually, even when he gives the officer the orders, it takes some time to convince, because the officer's like, oh no, I'm not pulling back. We've been through this how many times before? This time we complete the attack. And he has to tell him, no, you don't get it. It's a trap. And he calls the men back, and then he goes to look for his friend's brother and break the news to him. He gives them his brother's dog tag and the rings he had on, and even asks him, hey, is it all right if, because one of his friend's last request was, can you write my family, tell him I wasn't afraid? And he even asks the brother, who's a lieutenant, would it be all right if I wrote your mother? And the brother nods, and the film ends similar to how it began, with just, rather than just those two guys laying in a field, just this guy. And I actually like that it went this direction with the downer ending. I mean, it's kind of like, I could compare it to Saving Private Ryan in that respect. Yeah, did Private Ryan get to go home? Yeah, but did almost everyone in Tom Hanks's platoon die in the process? Yes, films like this should not have the happy ending. and this one didn't, and I'm really glad they went in that route. Even the music in this film is minimalistic, and there's long periods of just almost awkward nothingness sparse between you have these more heavy scenes. Even the scene where he discovers a woman hiding in a basement from the German soldiers who has a baby, that is just a very tense, nightmarish scene to think about being in that predicament. 1917 isn't your typical war movie. It's kind of like when Dunkirk came out, and I know a lot of people that didn't seem to like it, and one of the common complaints are there wasn't a lot of action in that movie, and I think, do you know history? Do you know anything about the Dunkirk event? It wasn't a battle, and although there is some shooting in this movie, it's not about the battles, it's about a journey, just two than one man trying to get from point A to point B to stop a battle. And although there are scenes of action here or there, it's not what this film is about. I give this film an A+. I can't recommend 1917 enough, and if you're watching this, I spoiled the movie for you, but I did say that in the beginning of the review. So what are your thoughts? Do you want to see it? Have you seen it? Like, share, comment, subscribe. Over and out.